Hello and welcome to the JB&M Sports Fanatic channel. And so we are going to go through the AP Top 25 now that it's been released today. And so obviously, like yesterday presented its share of games in which, there were some teams that went out there and took care of business. You had some matchups, between two top 25 teams, referring to the BYU versus Oregon, in which Oregon had their redemption. And also, when Miami played against Texas A&M, really Miami's first challenge of the season. Then you had A&M going out there and coming up victorious. It may not have been pretty, but they did come up with the win. There were some teams, though, that did have some style points. Ohio State, going out there and scoring over 70 points. CJ Stroud and company looked very good offensively, and then just a lot of things throughout the league. And we'll go ahead and dive into that top 25 and see how everybody ranked there. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, all right, so right off the bat, at number one, not much change expected here at the top. Let's see. So Georgia at number one, they beat South Carolina 48-7. And so Spencer Rattler and company went out there, took care of business. And Georgia has just been from start to finish in this entire season here. They look like the number one team out there, and they look like they're still, at that same level that they were last year. And so obviously, as we get to the bulkier part of their schedule, we'll see how that goes there. But going down there, taking care of business against South Carolina. And they got Kent State coming up next week. So expect more of the same here from the Bulldogs moving forward with that one. And let's see. All right, so Alabama at number two, and so again 3-0 here, and this time against UL Monroe, they won 63-7, and so UL Monroe didn't stand much of a chance. They will play Vanderbilt, an SEC opponent, in which Vanderbilt is one of their better Vanderbilt products that we've seen over the last couple of years. However, though, that's I expect Bama to still go out there and still look like Bama out there in that matchup there, and so but they will be playing an SEC opponent here, so we'll see how that plays out there for them. At number three, the Buckeyes, they won against Toledo 77-21. So the offense is clicking, looking much better. And so CJ Stroud, fantastic. And so when you think about the Buckeyes, though, you start to wonder, though, a little bit about the strength of the schedule here for the Buckeyes in terms of, Notre Dame being 1-2 right now. You're banking on really that win against Notre Dame being a signature marquee win. You got Wisconsin coming up next. And so Wisconsin, they're coming off a big win here. So, Big Ten play, got to go off there to a good start. And we'll see how specifically that defense is going to look against that offense of Wisconsin. And, hey, we'll look and see just how competitive that is. But I expect that one to be a game in which the Buckeyes go out there and win. At number four, Michigan. And so for Michigan, I mean, they're going to be going up against Maryland here. And so far, they've been out there, like you talking about, like I mentioned for Georgia, having full control against their opponents and stuff like that. But they beat up on UConn 59-0 here. They got Maryland coming up next week. And so right now, they're for this point of the schedule for Michigan, I mean, they're taking care of business as they should. But for them, the test will become later on in the season when they start to play some of the bigger matchups in the league. But for right now, they're taking care of business. And with Maryland coming up, though, we'll see if they continue to dominate things against Maryland moving forward. Not to mention one of their quarterbacks, being injured as well. So they're going to be without him for a minute, but certainly looking forward to seeing that there for Michigan moving forward. Now, number five, Clemson. So Clemson beat Louisiana Tech 48-20. They got Wake Forest coming up. Now, Wake Forest barely by the skin of their teeth got past Liberty there in a close matchup there. It's going to be at Wake Forest there. Wake Forest, I am looking forward to seeing that game versus Clemson there. I hope that it's a good one there. It has the potential, but it's really going to come down to Clemson offensively. How does DJU look in that matchup there for them? And as for Wake Forest, how will they look offensively against Clemson's defense as well? So we'll see how that game plays out there, but something tells me that that game is going to be a really good game coming up there for those two ACC teams. All right, so at number six, they got the Oklahoma Sooners, and so Oklahoma beat Nebraska 49-14. Got Kansas State coming up next week, and Oklahoma rushed for 327 yards over Nebraska. So that is very big right there. That ground game was huge against Nebraska. At number seven, we got USC. USC beat Fresno State 45-17, and so I mean, all the hype around USC is as high as ever right now. They got Oregon State coming up next week. That'll be a night game there for them again, but they're looking very impressive so far there. Now, number eight for Kentucky, for number eight here for Kentucky. And so 3-0. And so I do wonder because they did jump up big when they beat Florida. And we saw Florida barely by the skin of their teeth get by University of South Florida. So putting them at number eight. And so I'm not going to argue it too much here, but I mean, for me, I probably would have the Wildcats just a little bit lower here. They did beat up on Youngstown State here 31-0, but put them at number 8. I'm not going to really complain about that, honestly, for them. The true test for them will be when they play the Georgias of the world. How will they fare against them moving forward? All right, at number 9, Oklahoma State Cowboys 3-0. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they've got Baylor coming up next week, and so that'll be a good matchup there for them. And that one, I expect Oklahoma State to still go out there and win. And very impressive with their defense. Their offense looking good as well. So we'll see how they look, moving forward. Certainly a team that most people aren't really or are not really given, I guess, a chance at the college football playoffs. But given how their schedule goes, if they can go out there and continue to, like have their way, I feel like this is a team to keep your eye out for this season. At number 10, Arkansas Razorbacks. And so it was a bit of a slow start. Not going to lie, a bit of a slow start there against Missouri State. And so they kept them at 10. I probably would have dropped them down a spot to 11, but I'm not going to argue because I do like the build of Arkansas. And we'll just have to see how they do. But their next test is going to be Texas A&M, and that will be a great test for both of these programs there. So we'll see, obviously, how that looks for them against Texas A&M. Can they win that one? But so far, Arkansas has been playing some tough schedules already. Like Cincinnati already, and so, like, they've been in a lot of battles already, is what I'm saying. So we'll see how that looks for Arkansas. But I do like the matchup they have coming up against Texas A&M and look forward to seeing how they're going to do in that performance. And so Tennessee, number 11, and so they beat Akron 63-6. No surprise there. They got Florida coming up there. Florida could be a bit of a trap game for them, but we will see if they're able to win. How do they look in that matchup there? But them versus Florida, that should be a good one. All right, so number 12, North Carolina State Wolfpacks, 3-0. And so, again, I still feel like they should have lost that game against East Carolina, but they did win this when they beat Texas Tech 27-14. They got UConn coming up. Michigan did have their way against UConn there, so I'm expecting North Carolina State to go out there and be able to take care of business. And so we'll see how they do later on in ACC competition, but for right now, they're at number 12. And so Utah, number 13. And so they moved up from 14. They beat San Diego State 35-7, and their upcoming opponent is going to be Arizona State. And so we'll continue to see how they do in the long run in this season here. But obviously, their biggest loss came to Florida. And the more that Florida struggles, the more that loss does look bad for Utah. But right now, being 2-1, so this is a team that, as the season goes on, they'll get better as well. Not number 14. I got to give credit where credit is due. And so Penn State going on the road and dropping 40 plus points against that Auburn defense at Auburn, regardless of what you think about Auburn, as in terms of their overall team, that defense is still an Auburn caliber defense. And so for them to win 41-22, that was impressive. They jumped up from 22-14. That's how impressive it was to go down there at Auburn and to win that game in that fashion, 41-12. So that caught my attention. Not only that, freshman running back Nicholas Singleton rushed for more than 100 yards in the past 2 weeks. And so the offense now has balance down there for Penn State. So pretty good right there for them. They got Central Michigan coming up next week. And so Penn State is a team that I've got my eyes open watching here, especially with Michigan State losing and stuff like that in the Big Ten. I mean, outside of Ohio State and Michigan, watch out for Penn State. All right, so number 15, they got the Oregon Ducks, and so the Oregon Ducks jumped up from 25 to 15. I mean, I get jumping them up, but I probably would have moved them from 25 to maybe 18 or something like that. But they did beat BYU 41-20 in that matchup, so I do like that. It's an impressive victory. We all know what happened with Georgia, but hey, this is Georgia out there taking care of business. There's going to be a lot of teams that play Georgia that's going to get embarrassed, so nothing to be ashamed about there for the Oregon Ducks. But it was a wake-up call, and they are responding. Now they beat BYU, who was previously number 12, and so that's impressive. They got Washington State on the road next week, and so we'll continue to see this Ducks team, and I got a feeling that when it's all said and done, we're going to forget all about that loss to Georgia. All right, at number 16, you've got Ole Miss here. And so for Ole Miss, beating up on Georgia Tech 42-0. They've got Tulsa coming up. So right now, the favorable part of their schedule. But again, how would they look when they play against Alabama? How would they look when they play against Georgia? Those teams right there. Tennessee, how do they match up against those teams particularly? It's going to be the question. But jumping up from 20-16 with a Georgia Tech victory there. So we'll see against Tulsa. But again, we'll have to see once they get tested moving forward. All right, at number 17, you've got the Baylor Bears. And so they stayed at 17. They beat Texas State 42-7. So I think keeping them at 17, that's fair. They got Iowa State coming up there. Iowa State could be a sneaky game there. So we'll see how they look in that matchup. Number 18, the Washington Huskies. And so they went from unranked jumping up to number 18 because they surprised and beat Michigan State. And so Michigan State tends to have like one or two of these games a year. And so Washington did a tremendous job going out there and playing a great job there. So now they're ranked number 18. They're 3-0. So I like this. I like this. You know, that win that they had over Michigan State was very impressive. They got Stanford coming up. And so we'll see how they continue to do moving forward. And number 19, BYU. Now BYU dropped from 12 to 19, losing to Oregon. They're 2-1. So putting them at 19, I feel like that's about the range that I probably would keep BYU in. Honestly, they got Wyoming coming up. Expect them to bounce back. Now at number 20, the University of Florida. They survived against South Florida 31 to 28. I'm not impressed by what I see. They did drop two spots here. They got Tennessee coming up next. I want to see how they do against Tennessee, but honestly, Anthony Richardson, this team is only going to go as far as Anthony Richardson takes them. And right now, Anthony Richardson does not seem like he is going to be consistent, which is a major concern I have for the University of Florida. So I probably would have had them below Wake Forest at 21. So I probably would have put them below Wake Forest, honestly, to be honest. And so, but at 21, they have Wake Forest 3-0. They survived against Liberty. And so I get it. It wasn't pretty. They did drop from 19, but I would have put them at 20 as opposed to 21. But still, you know, like they did win the game against Liberty. And so that's great for them. They got a huge test coming up against Clemson and an opportunity to send a message in the ACC. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do here against Clemson Tigers. I think it's going to be a great matchup between those two teams. Then you got Texas. And so Texas, you know, fresh off of the loss to Alabama, that honestly felt like a win for them. It moved them into top 25 contention, all of that stuff. And so they were previously 21. Now they dropped to 22 despite this time winning against UTSA because for a good minute of that game, the game was close. They got Texas Tech coming up. Watch out on the road, Texas Tech. They will be fired up for that matchup there. Texas Tech has been playing some competitive football here. So looking forward to that matchup. Ultimately, still expect for Texas to go out there and to win. All right, and then 23, you got Texas A&M Aggies here, and so they, you know, jumped up from 24 to 23. And so I get it that it wasn't pretty, but I feel like Texas A&M should have jumped up a little bit more than 20 from than just one spot. They beat Miami, which was previously number 13, so I probably would have jumped them up above Texas. I would have put them above Texas and maybe even Wake Forest. So now that I'm looking at that, I probably would have jumped them up at least two more spots than what they did, but they moved up just one spot here with that win against Miami. They got Arkansas coming up there, so Arkansas that's going to be a great test for both programs there. And so if they can go ahead and beat Arkansas as well, this is a team that would be primed to take a big jump. I know they have the one loss there, but I mean that's just one loss there. You know, there's a lot of football to be played. At 24, got the Pittsburgh Panthers here, and so they beat Western Michigan 34 to 13. Got Rhode Island coming up here. Now they did drop them one spot, but you know, obviously they'll have to wait until they get to ACC competition to really go out there in the show, you know, strength of schedule wise. But that being said, though, top 25, I get it. And then Miami, they're at 25, previously number 13, so they took a massive loss. So what does that tell me? The committee was not impressed with Texas A&M's victory. They only moved them up one spot, and pretty much that loss for Miami was huge because you look at who Miami was beating prior in the year. You know, I mean, no offense to those schools at all, but they were not, you know, of the competition in which you know other schools are playing. And so this is the first true test of Miami, and they did not ring the bell. They honestly did not. They made mistakes here. You know, Tyler Van Dyke did not look like the quarterback that he, you know, is projected to be this season. And so they ended up losing that game, a game in which they found a way to lose, honestly, because there were so many opportunities that they had to turn the momentum in that game, but they failed to do that. So they dropped to 25. And so I did not think that they were going to drop this far from 13 to 25, considering the Texas A&M was still, in my opinion, a top 25 team in the SEC. But that being said, they still have them at 25 here. So if you're Miami, you got to focus on what's next. And what's next? Middle Tennessee State. Miami's been making their name so far this season off of programs like that. If they're going to get the respect of the committee, they're going to have to make some noise when they get to ACC competition. But there you guys have it. That's the top 25. Michigan State's the only team that dropped out of the top 25 there. They were previously number 11, and then they fell out of the ranks to the unranked guys. And so I'm surprised I did not see Florida State. I thought Florida State might have been able to sneak in there at 25, but they're a team that I've got my eyes out for in terms of a team that can make that jump into the top 25 this upcoming week. But with that being said, guys, thank you guys so much for joining. And hey, let me know your thoughts here on the top 25 and what matchups are you guys looking forward to this upcoming week. With that being said, thanks again for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.